What's up, Bucs fans? Back at it again with another one of these awesome draft profiles with my main man here, John Vogel of the Sick Podcast Network. Definitely check out his stuff. We're going to be going down the line. We did lot two last week, or last episode, rather. We're going to keep on the defensive side. We're going to hit another premier position that I know a lot of Bucs fans are thinking, do we really need one of these guys here? They're focused on kind of the edge position and the offensive line, but I think cornerback is a spot where the Bucs are really going to take a look at. Premium position. Same thing with, we'll get down the line with some other positions, I think, too. But I think with the trading of Carlton Davis, with Zion McCollum, I know they're high on him, but, we've seen the injury history with Jamel Dean and how rapidly secondaries can deteriorate. I think they're really going to take a strong look at a cornerback. They actually brought one of them in recently for a 30 visit into the facility. So we'll talk about him, figure out who it is if you haven't already. It's probably on the caption already. We're talking about Kool-Aid McKinstry of Alabama. We'll be back here, me and John, and we're going to break down everything Kool-Aid McKinstry and his fit with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Be right back.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Pirate Parlay.
Battle intercepted, picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world.
The sickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. It's going to be sick.
We are back at it again with John Vogel in studio. John, how are we doing today?
Awesome, JC. Thanks for the time.
Thank you for the time. Thanks for breaking down these profiles for us. For any of these Bucs fans who maybe don't know some of these players, are getting a little bit deeper inside look. And like I said, today we're going to look at Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback from Alabama. Really interesting case with Kool-Aid, because I think last year everyone had him coming to this year as a number one corner. Kind of slid down, but still I think a first-round talent. First-round grade. I have a first-round grade on him. He's a junior. He's a little bit shorter than what Todd Bowles like, just under 6 feet. He usually likes those bigger, longer cornerbacks. But, when you look at the guy and what he can do, what his strengths are, really fit what this Todd Bowles defense likes to do. There's been comparisons, and I'll let you give your comparison to a guy like A.J. Terrell, who the Bucs are very familiar with in the NFC South, having to go up against the Falcons twice a year. But let's get into the prospect right now. John, I'll ask you, tell me a little bit about Kool-Aid McKinstry. What's some of his strengths, his weaknesses, and why he might be a good fit here in Tampa Bay?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that the question he wanted to answer in the process was, does he have the long speed, right? I think there were some speed concerns on tape, and he didn't get a chance to answer that at the combine because they discovered a foot injury that needed some attention. And so he didn't test, he didn't do any of that, but so he's a guy that has been available throughout his entire career. Apparently had this foot injury, didn't even know that he had it. It was a stress fracture. So, he goes out to his pro day, he runs a 4.52. It's decent, it's good, it's not bad, but it's not great. So, but he's got just enough speed to be okay, right? I thought he was a thumper. I really liked his physicality. I thought he was pretty good in man coverage. He's pretty capable in zone coverage as well. I saw some recovery and some good things from that. I do think his hips are a little bit stiff. He can rotate them decently well in shorter bursts, but not anything really above a 90-degree turn. Where sometimes, you have to flip 180 to get yourself back into a play, sometimes even more than that, just depending on the situation you're in. And I think he's going to kind of struggle with that. But, so the speed is good. It's not great. It's good. He's very physical. He's a good run defender. He's willing to make tackles. And I don't know if there's necessarily really any upside with him. I think he's pretty much who he is at this point. But acceleration galore. I mean, his 10-yard split at his pro day, I thought it was a typo when I saw it, was 1.44. So that's right up there with the top corners in this class. He's got great short burst, makes him look like he's a lot faster, helps him with his long speed. So if I wanted to compare him to somebody, I really thought Kyler Gordon made a lot of sense as a comparison. Who I believe was a second-round pick. Now, you say, okay, well, you're comparing to a second-round pick. Does that mean he is a second-round pick? I think he's a little better than Gordon. But when you get into the 20 to 60 range in this class, picks 20 through 60, a lot of the talent is very similar across all those, that entire area. And you're going to see teams picking the guy that they really like. So when you kind of get in that group, it's about the same. There's not a huge drop-off this year. And so, this is a guy that could be worth a first-round pick.
Right, and we're previewing Kool-Aid, but some of those guys that T.J. Tampa, a Max Melton, Enos Rakestraw, a Kamari Latimer, Kamari is it Kamari Latimer? Yeah, the Georgia kid. I think it's Kamari Latimer, right?
Kamari Lassiter.
Sorry. So all those guys are kind of what you're talking about. Those guys kind of choose your flavor. I like Enos Rakestraw a lot too. But I think Kool-Aid is a guy who could come in here, as you said, really solid in run defense. And Bowles really mandates that out of his cornerbacks. If they're coming up to make a tackle, they need to make a tackle. And Jamel Dean's probably one of the better corners in the league in run defense. What I liked about him is, when the Bucs don't play man much, but when they do play man, they require a lot out of the cornerbacks. Dean's got the 4.4 speed. McCollum's got the 4.3 speed. So they really don't necessarily need the speed guy to match up with the other speed guy, because they have two of those guys on the roster. What they need is someone who's consistent, someone who's in the right area in the right time, someone who can close quickly, as you mentioned, and make plays on the ball. Only had 2 interceptions in Alabama, but he had a ton of pass deflections as well. And I think he's a guy who can come in here and if not challenge Zion McCollum, at least give the Bucs a really good feeling about when Dean does step away. If they're going to be in a similar situation with him as they were in Carlton. If Dean continues to miss time next offseason, they're looking at the same thing. Dean's a very good corner, probably top 3 in man press coverage in the league. Last year they didn't play it a lot, but the year prior to, he graded out as a number 1 corner in man press. They'll have a guy who can kind of fill in there, because Kool-Aid is a guy who can who can play man press, but as you mentioned, isn't out of place in zone. What are some of the red flags on Kool-Aid? Obviously, again, cornerback is one of those positions that is so hard because there's so much variance at that position. The wide receivers, etc. It's really hard to kind of judge a corner year to year. Only the great ones really stick out and stay consistent throughout. Even the guy I mentioned, AJ Terrell, had a down year. But what about him is kind of pushing him down the board behind the likes of a Quinion Mitchell, a Terrion Arnold, his running mate over at Alabama, maybe a Nate Wiggins, who seems to be kind of losing stock after an amazing combine. What makes him potentially be available at 26 instead of going higher? And I know we've talked about on the last pod offensive tackles, wide receivers, and quarterbacks, but as far as cornerback rankings, where do you have him, and why is he kind of falling below those other guys?
Well, he's my 3 in this class. I like him, right there, right in a tier with Terry and Arnold. They're very similar players, I think, from the way that they're built, the way that they play. I think the one thing that was interesting about him too was he measured in a lot smaller than people thought he would. People thought he was closer to 6'1", and he plays like it, So when he comes in at 5'11 and a half, you're kind of scratching your head going, is that for real? Like, did that really just happen? Because he plays like he's much bigger. So that was what was kind of interesting about Kool-Aid, I think, is it pushed him down a little bit, was he wasn't as tall as people thought he was. I think the other thing, too, we talked about the speed concerns, long speed concerns. We talked about the stress fracture that they discovered at the combine. Then we talked about the hips. The hips are huge as a corner, because that's part of your reactive athletic ability. You can be a great athlete at the corner position, right? And if you can't react to the routes and get yourself to stay with the wide receiver when he gets through his break, you're not going to be that effective as a corner. That's why we see people move to safety, because they're just not reactive enough. They have to go to a place where their movements, and the way that they react to things aren't as necessary to the position. So those are the kind of the question marks with him. But the thing is, when you watch him on tape, you watch him against some of the best wide receivers in the country, playing in the SEC, playing the loaded slate, even having Texas and Michigan on the schedule this year that had some really good wide receivers. He looked good. He held up, so the corner position has to be more so in your evaluation. Is this guy a guy that can play the position? Is he explosive? Yes. Is he a guy that stays with people? Yes. Does he stick with them? That has to kind of be your thing. And it puts him up over a guy like Nate Wiggins, who had an incredible combine, ran the 4.28, blew people away with that. But when you put on the tape, he's not sticking with guys. He's 2 or 3 steps behind people consistently, and he's having to recover to get back into play. Granted, he does it. But when you get it against a timing and rhythm quarterback, a guy that understands, hey, if I throw this ball as my receiver's breaking and his hips are just starting to turn, he's not going to have a chance. It's going to be beyond him. He can't recover to that. Once you get a quarterback that can understand that you're playing against, you're going to get torched the entire game. Right. So Kool-Aid doesn't have that problem.
Right. All right. So give me a ceiling and a floor for Kool-Aid. Where do you think, he comes in? Where do you think his floor is? Where do you think his ceiling is? What kind of player can he be in the NFL?
I think at best, we're talking about a guy that could be a low-tier number one corner. So I really would prefer this guy to be my 2. If I have a much better corner that I can play and just have him support, he's going to lock up 2 receivers in the league, and I don't have any issue with that. Yeah, I think he can play 1 in a pinch, but I don't want to pencil him in there as my starter there. His floor, I think, is a nickel corner, a guy that's a number 3 that you're going to put on slot guys that you're going to try to play, keep in the zone, and keep underneath. I think he's going to, which is a pretty high floor if you think about it, because nickel is such a versatile and valuable position in the league right now. So I think his floor is pretty high, and that's what's going to help him get drafted a little bit earlier over some of these other corners in the class, because he did it at a high level at the SEC. He's going to probably be able to carry that over to the NFL.
If you're the Bucs, why do you take him at 26?
If I take him at 26, it's because, one, I'm not sure that Zion McCollum has the physicality to match the outside. He's a speed guy. He's a cover guy. I'm going to bring somebody in there that's going to have that type of, physicality, that brute force, come downhill, hit people. So that's why I'm going to bring him in. Jamel Dean, it was a great point that you brought up, his injury history. If he goes down, like I said, I can put him in number 1 in a pinch, and I can fit him over there and feel okay about it. And so that's all those things that you listed earlier in the show are great examples of why you would play this guy at that position. It's like you've been talking to Buccaneer coaches or something, JC. It's crazy.
I freaking
I know. I'm throwing. Yeah, I'm having fun, man.
No, but
I'm messing with you.
Yeah, so I mean that's Kool-Aid McKinstry, guys. I think he'd be a good pick. Obviously, the Bucs are interested in bringing him in again on one of those 30 visits. Teams only have 30 visits. They're able to bring in prospects. It's not always a telltale sign that they're going to take them. Last year, case in point, they did not even speak at all with Kalijah Kancey and took him in the first round, but it is a good indication that there's something that they want to check on. At this point, likely that stress fracture in his foot. Kind of maybe get to know him a little bit more after meeting with him at the Combine. So that's going to do it for another draft profile breakdown. We'll be back. I've got a couple more guys that I want to get John's opinions on and see what they're at. Definitely at the interior offensive line position. Wide receiver too. I think that's a sneaky first round play for the Bucs. So don't be shocked that they go there. And then we'll probably do one podcast where we just talk about a bunch of different practice, get a bunch of one-liners from John and his thoughts on those guys. But that's going to do it for us. John, thank you again. Where can they find you?
At the Sick Podcast, Draft Vogel, right here on the Sick Network, and then on X at Draft Vogel.
Awesome. That's going to do it for us, John. Thank you so much for being here. Go ahead, check out Leatu Latu, obviously this one, and see what we got cooking up next. See you guys later. Peace. We're out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Pirate Parlay on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.